And we're actually at the site of the Boston Massacre, which took place. And I'll come a little bit closer just so you can hear me, and you'll be able to adjust the camera. But we'll give it a few minutes, and then we'll have a better high-definition copy that will be a part of a bigger video. But also, we'll put this on later, so it'll be a better video, so you can hear it a lot better anyway, and it'll be just better without the cutout from streaming live in a busy metropolitan area. But anyway, we're down here at the site right here, and we're getting this footage for a documentary that we have coming up here pretty soon. But right across the way here, if you span this way over here, there is actually the site of the Boston Massacre. Okay, that's actually the site of the Boston Massacre that took place, and that's marked on Freedom Trail here. And interesting stuff you can see, tour guides that are walking around and everybody like that. Busy area, lots of people, Memorial Weekend. It just so happens that we're here on this weekend here. But over there I showed you, that's the spot there, but that's also a spot for something even more important, which I would call the true history of liberty, or the true Freedom Trail. And that is the beating of Obadiah Holmes. So some of the men that pastors of this group right here, John Cotton being one of them. One of those men was highly involved with the trial that took place. Endicott was the governor at the time, and a few men got in trouble. And you might know they're Baptist men, and that's why I'm talking about liberty. When you go over there and you see that this trail of freedom, or Freedom Trail that they talk about here, they're missing something. What they're missing is the beating of Obadiah Holmes, which took place right here at this spot over here. And his trial would have taken place. And what happened? So why was Obadiah Holmes beaten? Well, let's start with what took place. John Clark and Obadiah Holmes and a man named John Crandall, they were visiting over here in the Massachusetts colony, a man named William Witter. And they had a church service at his house, and they were ministering to one of their flock. And they got in a little bit of trouble with the standing order. You see, they outlawed anybody except their own kind from having church services. If you weren't registered with them, if you weren't part of the standing order, if you weren't part of their church, then you had no liberty in the colonies at all. And John Clark and Obadiah Holmes came to minister to their church members. And when they came to minister to one of their church members, they caught them. They sent 2 constables over. They caught them, and they arrested them, and they brought them into the courthouse, and they tried them a week later. And they were tried for having an unlawful assembly. And when they were tried for having an unlawful assembly, they were charged, and a few of the men, Endicott being one of them, said, "You ought to die for what you have done." For preaching the Son of God, they said that those men ought to die for what they done. Well, they were found guilty, and they were going to get 30 lashes, or they had to pay a fine. Well, they quickly raised the funds for John Clark and Crandall to pay the fine, but Obadiah Holmes said, no dice, I'm not paying the fine. I'm not going to pay the fine, I'd rather take the beating. And he was a man of principle and character, and he didn't question whether Clark, was wrong about what he had done. It was just Obadiah Holmes. Baptists believe in liberty of conscience. So because of that liberty of conscience, the Baptist, Obadiah Holmes, said, you know what, I'd rather be beaten. I'm not going to do that. So Obadiah Holmes took the beating. And he was beaten with 30 slashes. And it was said that Cotton actually struck him at the trial. That he was struck while he was in custody. Already, he was smacked around by them already, which I believe, because that's how Puritan Reformer guys are. They like to beat people up. They're like Roman Catholics, and they enjoy a Baptist beating is what they did. So anyway, that's what they did, and so they tried him, they charged him, and they beat him. It's said that a week after his beating took place, or 2 weeks after his beating took place, he had to sleep on his elbows and on his knees because he could not sleep on his back because he was that injured. It is said that he really was, it affected him the rest of his life. It actually crippled him a little bit for the rest of his life. It affected him. Obadiah Holmes would go on to be one of the pastors at the First Baptist church there in Rhode Island, and he would go on to pastor that church there for many years. He wrote a book, his last will and testament. That book is available. You can get that book. I've read it. It's a very good one. Let's see. I think that he had most of all of his children lived. He had one that had died, but they lived. His rest of his children lived to full adulthood, and he didn't have much to give them, but he passed on to them a great godly heritage. But Obadiah Holmes, John Clark would go on, and they would found the First Baptist Church there in Rhode Island, and also John Clark and Roger Williams, those men would be a part of the first state that would compact that would allow religious liberty. In fact, the first synod, the first Jewish synagogue, would be in Rhode Island, and they would have perfect liberty, and he wouldn't persecute the Quakers, and he wouldn't persecute those others. Did he believe in Quaker theology? No, he was against it. But he defended their right to be wrong. He defended their right to religious liberty without persecution. Jesus Christ told his disciples, "You know not what manner of spirit ye are of," when they wanted to call down fire from heaven and destroy those Samaritans, because they didn't believe on Jesus. Well, Jesus said, "No, you're to preach the gospel. Because the Son of Man came not in the world to destroy men's lives, but to save them." And that's what we're to do. We're to preach the gospel. But Reformed theology will get you in trouble. That theology, that church-state theology that puts the church at the head of the state, or the church controlling the state, is a dangerous thing. Obadiah Holmes would bear witness to that today, and his history bears witness to that. I've been over to England, and the anonymous prisoner of Newgate over there would bear witness to that. The Baptists that were persecuted all down through the centuries, martyrs, mirrors, and all those would bear witness to that it's a dangerous thing to have a church state. It's a dangerous thing not to have individual soul liberty. It's a dangerous thing not to have freedom of conscience. And one of the reasons why, and the main reason why, you have what I call the Baptist amendments, right? You have the First and Second Amendment here in America today. That separation clause and all of those things is because of what took place right here, the beating of Obadiah Holmes. What took place right on this spot, his trial for religious liberty. And those others that would die or that would be beaten or that would be persecuted. The 40 imprisoned Baptists in Virginia, Baptist pastors and preachers in Virginia. All of these people, all of them have a part in that. All of them were a part of why we have the First and Second Amendment, down to when it comes to the Leland Madison, which we'll talk about, Leland Madison Memorial and the First and Second Amendment and all those other, I call it the Baptist Bill of Rights. All of that stuff leads to that. But right here is an integral part of that. But you notice this, you scan over there, go over there, and what you'll notice over there, the one thing that you'll notice is they're talking about the Boston Massacre that took place. Well, the real massacre, the real beating was Obadiah Holmes. That was the real turning point for a lot of people, and which really cemented religious liberty began to. Because John Clark, Obadiah Holmes, and Roger Williams would go on to work very hard over in Rhode Island, which we will get to this week, by the way, and I'll broadcast live from Rhode Island. But Rhode Island is where you have the Portsmouth Compact, you have the other this lively experiment. We'll talk about that, but this had something to do with that. Roger Williams, John Clark, Obadiah Holmes, those men would be banished from the Massachusetts colony. They would be banished from these colonies, and they would go seek the king over in England, and they would seek to have a religious charter that would provide religious liberty for those in Rhode Island. So this is just that first spot, one of the first main spots that we'll talk about. And it's interesting because all around you see things that people have no idea what really took place there. But we know, and we want to bring it to you. Anyway, God bless you. We'll probably have more later.
It was a little choppy.